Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth It Then Worth It Now, a little side project that I run here on this channel where we have a look at games from yesteryear. They're not exactly in vogue, but generally speaking they're games that mean something to me and I want to shout them out regardless. What we try to do is line it up with a sale, and today's no exception. We're going to have a look at Phantom Doctrine, which is on deep sale at the moment. It's gone for a couple of bucks, like 90% off. And funnily enough, I was already kind of chipping away at this in the background. I've had a bit of a fascination with this game over the years since its release back in, 2018? Let me just be very clear at the top. I think it's a really interesting, clever game. It's got a lot of problems with it, right? You could call it lovable jank or whatever. I'm not trying to sell you a 10 out of 10 game, but the concept is just so original and intriguing, and the execution has some very unusual mini games and methods. For me personally, it makes up for the frustration, honestly, when it doesn't stick the landing. So go in with your eyes open. What's going on here is that it's ultimately a turn-based tactics come base management type game. Think XCOM, but what you're handling thematically is like a CIA spy cell circa 80s post-Cold War. I think you can go KGB as well. They've got their side of the story, and there's kind of a third faction, the antagonist. But anyway, like, there is an actual complex, long-running story going on, and it is very spy thriller from top to bottom. And that might be enough for people to just give it a go, sight unseen. What's a couple of bucks? And Scarlett's already said it's great. You know, we'll drill into it a little bit more. These videos aren't supposed to be super robust, but I'll give you a bit of an idea of what you're getting into. I think it has a lot of similarities, again, like I said, XCOM. You have a base management layer, and you also have the turn-based tactics doing missions. I would probably argue there's more focus on managing the base and world map over the combat moments, and in many ways you kind of avoid going on deployments. Let's start at that layer actually. So you've got a world map, and you kind of Carmen Sandiego globetrot, right? You have a roster of dudes in your employ, different spies from different backgrounds, that sort of thing, and they all have like hidden traits, and potentially they can get captured and brainwashed, and it leans into things like sleeper agents that can be activated with a phrase. So, you know, there's a bit of cheese, a bit of corn in there, and you can't always 100% trust your dudes, but you can even build like MK Ultra facilities to brainwash and interrogate your own guys, or captured enemy agents. Well, that's a whole thing that we can get into. Your agents versus their agents. They're almost in a way like another player trying to sniff you out at the same time as you try and sniff them out. And their agents are kind of super powered and very difficult and very antagonistic, and they can recognize your agents. And you know, they're fun. I keep saying agents, I think of the Matrix, but it is a little bit like that. When you run into an enemy agent, you have to very carefully handle with care, because it can escalate out of control. But to go back to the map, you've got your guys and you send them around the globe. What starts as a sort of narrow play space with limited areas, kind of Middle East-ish, that you head to. It also opens up to like East Coast America and a bit more of Europe. And as you go along and the campaign gets pushed along, the story sort of tentpole milestones get pushed past, so does the play space increase. But you could probably just start from that level and say that you're trying to obviously complete the main campaign. I don't necessarily want to get into it because it's primo spy thriller stuff, trying to sniff out other cells and what they're up to and this, that, and the other. But as a side, you're trying to make contact with suspicious activity, points of interest. So a little pip will pop up in one of the locations, and part of your spy network is trying to have people on the ground spread around, basically, so they can quick response or even be there when the pip pops up. So you send a dude over there and they have to fly against the clock. And when they rock up, there'll be multiple different things that happen. The main one is like an informer trying to reach out to you, and there is a timer where they're sort of a target of interest, and presumably within the game's code, the enemy knows that that guy's trying to make contact. So there is a possibility that they will make an attempt at this dude to sort of block him or intercept him. But when the timer runs out, you can get rewards. And that could be as simple as unlocking the potential of certain spies and their backgrounds and their training abilities. Quite often it gives you documents that go against like a case file. There's sort of sub-campaigns going on at any given time. And you go to the the Charlie Day psychosis corkboard with all the different bits of string tying everything together. And so through that, you look at documents and you scan them for keywords and you click on them. And it's this very strange analyst mini game that becomes quite involved, and you try and tie these different keywords together between the pieces of evidence. I'll put some B-roll up, obviously, but in the end, you'll have like a core case file and you're trying to link origins back to it. And once you tie up all the loose ends or the relevant bits of yarn, it will complete the case file, unlock all sorts of major rewards. So that's kind of what your main motivation is. And it's not always contacts making contact. Often it'll be enemies that you bump into, whether they're trying to stop a contact, or you might even find an enemy cell. You might cross paths with enemy agents. And again, you can just kill them outright if you can. They're tough. Or you can try and extract and capture them to interrogate them to find out where their HQs are, their cells are. And as long as there's a hidden enemy cell working against you, it'll be ticking against like a doom timer danger meter for you and, hurting your resources, your money. And once your danger meter fills up, you have to move HQ. So you're sort of constantly trying to evade them and they're trying to evade you. And it has this real great cat and mouse thing. So when you do actually come up against an enemy, depending on the technology you've unlocked, because there are multiple choices that aren't clear to you at the beginning, you can do tactical recon, you can try and tail them, like let them finish their operation and follow them back to their base to find their base. You can try and just shut it down whole cloth, which is sort of what you're trying to do. You're trying to control the space and avoid getting bogged down in the turn base, which is, this is where pacing problems come into it. I like aspects of the turn-based thing, but it is a bit of a slog. Like, it doesn't quite work, and arguably the flow state becomes better the more you play it, the more comfortable you get with it. But, you could find yourself in just some random side mission interception that you didn't complete on the overworld map by accident, and now you're stuck in a 45-minute contact mission on the ground. Like, it is also well put together, and sparingly, I enjoy those missions, but it does sort of shine a big bright light on the fact that you're kind of trying to avoid engaging with one of the core mechanics. And therein, lies arguably a very fundamental design problem. But when the rubber does hit the road and you end up going into an arena, it'll be, some sort of 80s brutalist architecture. Everything's raining a lot of the time and you rock up in like a shitty panel van. So it has that 80s era Black Ops vibe to it. You equip your dudes depending on the mission and the recon that you do and etc. peripheral stuff. You might actually be able to disguise guys ahead of time and have them infiltrated into out of bounds areas. And it's tough to really tell, even all these hours in over all these years, what the game really wants you to do, to the point where I'm not 100% sure what the developers, if they even truly understand what they're doing. Like, if the game is wanting you to stealth in, or if it's wanting you to have a stand-up fight, because it does force your hand quite often, randomly, the mission can just go sideways. But broadly speaking, an encounter will play out as you insert through your little minivan, you sneak around, you can turn off cameras wherever you go. There are certain insta triggers for the alarm, and that just gives the whole thing up into a second full combat stage. Doesn't matter who your dude is, where he is, if he was spotted or not. If one of you guys is spotted, all of you guys are compromised. And this could be as simple as being in an out of bounds area without a disguise on, or maybe you overarm them. You give them super heavy armor, so they're like out of the heat bank robbery, right? It's pretty obvious these dudes with M16s and body armor are here to mean business, and even a civilian seeing that will raise the alarm. But yeah, you try and sneak around and collect little bits of loot and documents and whatever you can find in the mission. Complete whatever the mission is. It could be an assassination mission, a rescue mission, plant bombs to blow up a facility. If it's a beholder cell, the enemy, it'll be like a 6-man all-out assault, pretty much killing everything. And it's very tough and it's very unforgiving. Your main character, Deadpan, you got to be careful sparingly sending him out, because if he dies, it's game over campaign. And if you're doing roguelike, which I was doing recently, it'll wipe bloody 30 hours of progress, which is frustrating. And it also uses the awareness dodge system, which you've probably never seen. It was in their previous game, which was Hard West 1. Hard West 2 went in a different direction with a different dev, which, is still great. Both great games for both different reasons. But essentially, It's trying to mitigate the randomization factor, you know, that people complain about, the online meme of 95% to hit in an XCOM game and you still miss, right? So this is to address the problem. However, it actually makes it kind of worse. I like it. I think it's novel, at least it's different, but it still makes it more abstract and difficult to understand than the normal percentage that people can understand. But ultimately, you guys have a health bar and they have an awareness bar. And the awareness bar can be spent. You don't get a choice. Think of it as a sort of recharging mana but armor bar to dodge certain weapons. And it seems to scale with damage, but because you can't see the enemy's awareness bar, you can't really be sure. A great example is if someone shoots a little pistol at one of your dudes standing out in the open, no cover, no nothing, chances are his awareness bar will absorb the shot. He'll lose like 75% awareness and it'll count as a dodge. But that becomes rare very quickly, right? Sometimes there are police officers with pistols, but often it's agents with giant fucking MGs and that sort of stuff, right? And that'll eat all your awareness and it'll eat half your health bar. You can try and mitigate it with armor and cover, but it becomes tricky. And on top of that, I don't want to make this too long, but I have to also be honest, you know, the AI does cheat, at least against what you would be expected from an AI system, right? If you call an extract and there's only one path back to it, the off-screen AI will know the architecture of the game that you couldn't know, which is in Fog of War, and they will set ambushes and Overwatch shots against your only path through, right? They will react that way. They will swarm your dudes. They will aggressively, how do I say? They will play without concern for self-preservation, which is a tactic that you can kind of do to leverage getting around awareness bars and all that. Things like pistols are very powerful up close. So you could just run point blank, ignore cover and all that up to an agent and try and just shoot him straight in the head point blank. And often that is a good solution to a protracted fight. But the AI kind of does the same. And, you know, it does feel unfair. You'd understand if you'd played this a bit, and I'm not trying to scare people off, but it can be frustrating that someone trips the alarm, you have one dude isolated out of bounds, and then he gets jumped by 3 dudes with automatic weapons who will run up almost point blank or on a hard angle and just mince him and kill him before you even get a chance to react. So yeah, look, it has its frustrations, but it's so worth at least trying for a couple of dollars, especially if you find any of this industry or genre interesting, right? XCOM Cold War Spies with a bit of jank. You'll at least get a few hours of fun out of it, if not being grabbed entirely like I am, and I come back to it constantly over the years. Anyway, we're waffling at this point, so let's wrap it up. Check it out yourself, team. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.